Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. It is another terrific Tuesday's edition of Talk Today as we invite you to be a part of our discussion, 949-8037, or you can use the toll-free line at 1-800-534-8255. Eagle anticipating the arrival of Mr. Steve McField and hopefully Mr. Roy Borden. It's been raining and wet, so we never know how that can affect our schedules. If they come, we're going to have the usual engaging, informative, lively discussion. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Also brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile. Saving lives today. Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. It is 949-8037, 949-8037, or 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261. Well, we got it here, so we're going to share it with you as you wish. It's going to be some open line, and hopefully their schedules will align and allow us to be able to welcome them to our studio. If they do, we'll have the chance to chat with Mr. Steve and Mr. Roy. It is an interesting time in our history. Our political, economic, and human history has seen much. We say history is littered with many examples, and perhaps even this episode in our lives, these last few months have been taxing. They certainly have been, for some, unprecedented, and without question, a challenging time now. Can we embrace it? Do we have the strength to endure? And what do we do to position ourselves, perhaps to even reposition ourselves, our businesses, our families, our communities, to make them stronger, safer, healthier, more secure and stable? But from the perspective of what we are experiencing, I must share, it's been good the last few weeks to have been physically absent from the studio, to be able to not only get some of the things I wanted to attend, but to have the opportunity to speak in some instances without being rushed, to have people to share as their schedules allowed. And without question, one of the things that perhaps occupied many of our thoughts is the proposed reopening of our borders. And maybe one of the best ways to share is to relay what one lady had, sort of mentioned in passing. She says, we can't live in a bubble. But for those who have said that, we needed outside assistance in every respect, from the help to build and invest, to the human resources to develop, to everything else, is this an opportune time to look at who we are, what we are, and perhaps what we want to be? And increasingly, she said, efforts are made, however you wish to give credit for whatever actions that are taken or not taken, whether it's this way or that. And as she said, it's going to come down to a few things. like it or not, someone somewhere is going to parlay it into some political, maneuvering, and others are going to try to use it to heavily capitalize on their financial sort of windfall. But she said, if we allow ourselves to take stock of what we have, then we could look very, very, very closely at perhaps what we could be and should be if we were willing to look back as to what we were. Well, with that, I wanted to be able to, as expected, have the excellent company of Mr. Steve McField. One of the great things of radio is that we never had to worry about how we move within the studio other than the sounds. But when we introduce these one-eye monsters that are, stapled to the wall, then you get to see the physical actions and make the guys behind the scenes that much more challenged to accommodate our movements within the studio. But nonetheless, they say that's progress. I don't know. Maybe it isn't. But as he gets settled, and hopefully Mr. Roy Borden would equally have opportunity to join us. Mr. Steve, thank you, sir, for not only your great insight and counsel and your graciousness and willingness to share with us, but for your physical presence, man, to share with us, to be able to sit across the table.
Well, thank you for asking me, Thurden. I just came from court. I still work. My two great loves is politics and law. And it's always so good when you call and ask me to come to join you in your discussions on your radio. Of course, I love Mr. Loxley as the same as you do, and Orit, and it's always a pleasure for me to come. It's not work for me to come. Even if I'm doing something, I weigh the importance of the things I'm doing to see which is most important, and to be able to share knowledge and to share perspectives with you, and to just to have discussions with you on another level is so pleasing to me, and it I guess it keeps my mind occupied and keeps me alert, and that's what I like in life, because it is one of the great outlets that I have. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have that outlet. Perhaps I would have gone back to Canada, where I can have these discussions. I could join people on platforms and at the university and in forums and things like that to fulfill that part of my life.
Well, thank you, and I must share, you're always so gracious, so willing. Anytime we call, ask you, the insight, the perspective, but invite you to come on the show, you make yourself available, and that is invaluable. And something you just said that I hope it just, resonates with us, but prompts us to take action. We have people in our society who not only need, as you shared, but the society needs them to be able to share. We don't have the forum that other advanced economies have, whether it's the university settings, whether it's the public square. Everything seems to devolve into this vitriolic approach, this less than stellar sort of debate when people are critiquing whether it's the government of the day's action or whether it's a particular individual, whatever office is being held. And that's unfortunate, because how can we have a healthy sort of progressive democracy if our people are silenced, if they're unwilling to speak because they fear they're going to be victimized, if they're in fact intimidated, even if they're self-censoring? I mean, I sometimes do that here.
Mr. Borden can tell you, probably give you a similar narrative too. But even while I have the platform of the university and all the resources that they provided, the libraries are tremendous. 4 and 5 and 6 floors of books. And I mean, I used to be indulged there till all like 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. Couldn't get enough. And then they're also visiting people from other provinces, visiting professors, visiting people who come to give lectures. And sometimes the lectures halls are full with people, not only students, but people outside of the university who wants to gain knowledge and to understand things that's happening in their lifetime. And that was one of the things that I followed religiously in Canada, like going to different universities. Even, I went to UBC, but the university that's also in Vancouver is Simon Fraser. And I would go there in some weekends to listen to their professors there and beg to sit in their lectures to just to see whether or not they coincide, the professors or speakers coincide with each other, or whether they had a different point of view, because that's what education is all about.
Yeah, having a different point of view, to being able to look at history and hear something is recorded, whether it's the last decade or the last century. I'm sometimes challenged by the things that are electronically available and how easy it is, whether inadvertently or maliciously and deliberately, a word is changed or inserted, or something is manipulated, not only to revise history, but to make it disjointed. And if our people aren't willing to look at things and have a physical resource, whether in the person who can give us the experience and explanation, or in the book, as it were, to be able to go back to, are we at risk, perhaps in our own history, as we record our history, as we reflect on it, that we don't have enough of that, so that our people, for generations to come even, to be able to look back and say, hey, at this date and time, in this particular era, this is what we experienced, this is what was the sentiment. Is that something that we're not cognizant of?
Yeah, and some great people have said that history could also be any way you interpret it. I remember, and they say history is always written by the conqueror, the person who conquers. He writes the history. The losers don't write history.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I was in Denmark and Sweden, and I was going to the archives there, and we were taken on a tour to the different palaces of the different sovereigns. The king of Denmark and Sweden. Mm-hmm. And while they were touring, when we were in Denmark, they said that the war between Denmark and Sweden, that Denmark had won the war, and they had all the paraphernalia showing how they had won the war in picture form, And when we got to Sweden, they also said they had won the war, and they had all the paraphernalia saying how they had won the war, all of the battle scenes and so forth. But one thing that cannot be denied is the truth, is the facts. And they're usually in the documents that people write and that people record. They're usually in the archives. And that is a place where research professors and research teachers go to find the real truth there. And it's from that they write, from those facts that they write the history. Now, they can interpret them different from the way I do, because even in law, lawyers can have a set of facts and 10 lawyers in court, and each one can interpret them 10 different ways to try to get the judge persuaded to accept their facts. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if we have done enough. We have done enough of that. I know that we have done some oral history. We have recorded some oral history, but in our archives there are some recorded history that are now available, and I don't know how many Caymanians know about that. But it's about the era, 20 and 30 years ago. You can see what the day-to-day affairs, at least politically, what it was, and economically too, some places, because there are all these reports that are going to the colonial office from their representatives in Cayman, who they have sending them reports every month, the monthly reports, and some of those now have been released. Mm-hmm. And they're ready in the archives. You can read them. You can go there and sit down, and you can't take them out. But you can go there and you can sit down and you can say, I would like to see what happened between 1960 and 1965. And they can bring the files out for you that had all those files were sent to England. And now the English have given us copies of those files back now. They released them. Because a lot of those things were sent private and confidential and secret and so forth. Those are the things that's one of the things I like to do. I like to indulge myself in those things. I go to the archives and I spend hours looking at what was reported in that era and before that too. So we do have some recorded history. A lot of it were like you say were lost, and a lot of it was destroyed either advertently or deliberately.
Deliberately, yeah.
Or either I say advertently or deliberately, But there are some things, and especially about us, and we have a very colorful history. When you actually read some of the exploits of Caymanians and some of the deeds and some of the things they have done, and some of the way they manipulated their society and solved problems, even in those days, in those days in a different era, it's mind-boggling about the thoughts of those men, and some of them were not very learned. Some of them had, and this is where we coined the phrase. I don't know if they have it in Barbados or Jamaica, but we call it good old Caymanian common sense. I never heard old good old Jamaican common sense when I was in Jamaica. I never heard anyone using that phrase, but we coined the phrase good old Caymanian common sense, and it meant that, for an example, that a Caymanian man, a Caymanian teenager, you could say, at 19 and 20 years old, 18, was a captain on ships with lives in his charge and facing hurricanes, and had to make a decision whether or not to dismast the schooner or whatever. And the men at that age had to make those decisions, and they did that.
And they had experience.
And they did that.
Yeah.
And they did that. I mean, that is something that when you look at that, and then of course, many different people have their different periods in history that is very important to them. My period in history that's important to me is 1831. I mean, when I relate that the narrative of that period to other people who are not Caymanians, and even some Caymanians who don't know, they say, well, how did they get away with that? How did they do that? How were they able to take power in Cayman Islands and form two houses, two chambers in a legislative assembly, and pass laws and raise an army and raise taxes and so forth, and took Cayman into independence? How could they have done that without a fight? And when I tell people, like for instance in the United States, especially when I was before the United Nations, in the decolonization committee, when I relate that story, and they said, well, we shed blood to be able to do that. Many people died in the War of Independence to do that, and you people just did that on your own. And I mean, those men were gallant men. They knew that what they were doing were treasonable, and they could have been tried, but they went ahead and they did that, and they laid the foundation today for the beautiful building that we have in Georgetown called the Legislative Assembly Building. They laid the foundation for that. A lot of people don't know that. And another thing, again, is some other nationality other than Caymanian came into my office several times and were talking about their problems and the visa problems that they had, and they didn't qualify, like when they went to Jamaica to get a visa and so forth, but they had to revert to a waiver. And so I always pose the question: do you know how that came about? How you from another country now have the right to go to America without having a visa? I mean, relate to me what other country in the world that has that right. There's not any other country that has that right. You have to get a visa if you're leaving from Colombia or Venezuela or from Argentina, and you go into London and you're going to stop over in one day. You have to get a visa just to stop over. There's no in transit. You can't sit in. You have to get in a transit visa. But Caymanians can just go to the government house and I think pay $50 or something, and they get a piece of paper and they clip it in their passport and they go wave right through immigration. I mean, do you know how that happened? That happened by Caymanian ingenuity, and Caymanians did that. That's what they did. I mean, and then you say that we incompetent and that we're lazy and all those things. I don't think so. And Sterling, I'm not afraid to say it publicly. That is the reason why I live my life differently from most other people, because I know the era I came from, and I know the sacrifice those people made to make me who I am. I'm quite proud to be who I am, and that's why I'm so proud to come on the radio station to deliberate with you and to have discussions with you.
But I certainly appreciate it. And I want, to invite you when we return to talk about it, because sometimes we fail to appreciate the importance of our actions, to reflect on the historical sort of nature, but to draw from the stock and have we abdicated our responsibility. We're in an interesting time in history, but even if we just look at Cayman, so we would respectfully invite you to share as you wish. We'll ask some questions, we'll get in some debate. I always learn from you tremendously, and when I leave, I feel not only empowered, but I feel very, very, very proud to be living in this time. We got the great honor of Mr. Steve McFeel, so please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Green Turtle. Modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best and sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Attention, all government school students headed back to school. Demonstrate your school pride by following the National Dress Code Policy and your school's dress code. Under the National Dress Code Policy, all male students must have their hair short and in its natural color. Uniform shirts must be fully and neatly tucked in. Wear black sneakers or shoes, no visible undergarments, and no jewelry except for a wristwatch. To learn more about the dress code policy, visit www.education.gov.ky. Take pride in your stride today. A message from the Ministry of Education.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you very, very much for joining us in the studio. Mr. Steve McFeel joins us, and when I look at the honorary doctorate that UCCI conferred upon you, I think it's indicative that as a society, as we mature, we're recognizing how important it is for people to be able to point to examples, within our own stock that, it makes them understand the importance of, one, striving for excellence, and two, appreciating, as you said, the sacrifice that was made in the past, but equally that continues to be made now to ensure that we move forward in a future that is not just prosperous financially, but socially, and brings about a sense of stability. If I could, though, Mr. McFeel, ask, when we look at the political context that we find ourselves, we've seen that we had an election not long ago that for our own sort of populace, our electorate experience, for the first time, other than those who are accustomed to voting in the north side and east end, when they go to the polls, one person only has one vote over there. In the other districts, there were multiple options available. We had that short order. We have an election coming up. But in the ensuing period, we had this, I kind of use the word lockdown. I mean, to me, it's house arrest, imprisonment that the global communities have faced. Businesses have failed. Many people have succumbed in many ways. And then on the local front, we have a constitution that still allows, if this is the improper word, colonial power to utilize, a measure that was perhaps for some archaic, but it's still entrenched in our very recent constitution that we want to pass the other day. I mean, the ink hasn't dried properly on the papers yet. Are we maturing or are we regressing?
No, we're not maturing, because had we been maturing, we would have addressed those things before they became a crisis. So we have not been maturing. The problem that we have had, because constitutionally, is that all of the gains that the men who came before us, came before this set of people, these I would say these 2 decades, the Norman Bordens, the Benson Ebankses, the Jim Bordens, the Ormond Pantons, and the Warren Conleys, and all of those men, all the gains that they have made to try to consolidate that good old Caymanian common sense that I told you about, that we spoke about, to bring that into perspective, and to stand on that platform. And when they started to fade away, everything that they did faded away with them. And the new set of people now really don't care about those set of circumstances. It's not significant to them. And so in 2020, to still have these archaic provisions in our Constitution does not go well with modern scholars or modern constitutional lawyers. And we have not done much about it. And you know, I've been trying to think about why is it that we have not done much about it. And I come to a conclusion that we are actually comfortable in our economic and social economic life. And it seems to me that once you eat well, live well and stuff, all of those other things like constitutional advancement, constitutional protection doesn't really matter unless it becomes a crisis. The only time we think about it is when it becomes a crisis. It's just like not preparing. It's just like not preparing any money for your vehicle, even though it's new. You think it's going to be new all the time, and you're not going to have any repairs done to it. They're going to have any maintenance done to it. So you just don't care until one day it stops. And then when they come and they tow it away, they say it needs this part and this part, but you didn't put any money aside for it. All you did was put in some gasoline and drove it. And that is what happens. That is where we are right now. The crisis that we find ourselves in now, and the crisis that we are going through. And then we had no plan, no vision. We didn't have a vision of what we want our society to look like, and where we want it to go, and how fast we wanted to get there. There has been no actual vision of building the country. A lot of people believe that building a society is putting up buildings, putting up buildings. They think that that's building a society, but it's more than that. It's more than when you build an army. It's more than just the uniforms that you wear. You have to build.
So that discipline, training, the equipment,
and so forth. Yes, you have to do that. That's part of it. Everything.
If I can ask you then, sir, with that, when we talk about constitutional advancement, it seems that many of us immediately take the leap that constitutional advancement equates to independence. For some reason, there's no intervening step. If you talk constitutional advancement, that means you're going for independence. Is that the case, or are we just being duped and ill-informed?
No, that's not the case. The United Nations conventions don't say that.
Right.
We have. I think we have three more different steps. We have association, I think, and then we have
integration,
and all those steps to go.
So that notion of self-determination, and the reason why I'm asking is that I deliberately reached out to someone who holds himself out as being highly sort of involved with the political process, not as a politician, to my knowledge, never campaigned publicly, never been elected, but was involved with the constitutional talks on the periphery. And his recollection is that there were opportunities then to have put in play, or at least have asked for certain things that would give a semblance of greater autonomy. But whether it was the political pundits of the day on this side of the equation or on the UK side, oh no, if you want that, therefore that's independence. But isn't a good parent giving you as a child, the semblance of responsibility and authority to meet and match your maturity? And then even if you're 40 years old with your own children and your parents are, thank God, still alive, are they, as good parents, still available for counsel and guidance, to assist in whichever way? Maybe taking the children sometimes so that you can have an evening out as an adult company, or even saying, okay, financially here is a good idea. But why is it that we seem to take this notion that, well, you have to either this or that? There is no in between.
Well, the United Nations Conventions also say that the administrating country, which is the United Kingdom, has a duty to explain all these things to us and to prepare us for this eventuality. But we also have a duty also to be unified and to want to be trained and to be and to be updated and to promote the eventuality within us. But what we have done, we have not had that unity of purpose as far as self-determination is concerned, and that kind of thing is what we use as a whipping boy when you and I use the words or other people use the words, is because it's like a crutch. If that we adopted not to be able to forge our own way. We would rather sit down and wait for somebody to tell us what to do and how to do it, than to go out and do it how we did it ourselves. I use this analogy. Remember now that no one put us on the map. We did it ourselves by building our schooners and trading turtle and trading with other places. We did it ourselves. We didn't wait for some schooners to come here and bring us food. We went out and found it ourselves. And we did the same thing with work abroad. It's the same thing with this new era, this new place where we found ourselves. We are not united, and I would like to use the words that Gerard said some time ago, and I know Roy knows them probably by heart. We have a tendency in Cayman to not be united for a purpose. If one of us have an idea, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, we are not going to get anyone to follow us. And if the idea somehow turns out to be a good idea, where it can benefit other people and you can get some acclaim from it, everybody wants then to take that idea for themselves and to get the acclaim themselves. And that is why Gerard said that the Caymanian politicians were the most unscrupulous bunch of politicians he's ever met. And his whole administration, administration duties around. And he says every one of them wants to be the captain of the ship. Every one of them want to go up to the wheelhouse to steer the ship. And if they can't do that, they will go down in the engine room and wreck the engine so that the guy who's in charge of the ship can't take the ship anywhere.
Wow.
So that is how we are. And that's the fare that each one has. No one wanted to see Mr. Ormond Panton being the first chief minister during the 1960s. And that sort of situation has raised its head again in this era that we're in now. We're not a united people, and you cannot think about forging your own way in this modern world today that you're in unless you have unity or purpose among the people who are leading you where you're going. You will fail all the time.
Yeah.
And that unity has to be by some sort of vision. And then you have to bring your people along with it. You have to almost galvanize your people. And the vision that you carry is what they want and where they want to go. And that is how you go into, you just start preparing and go into independence.
Right.
Because if the talk now is independence, now the talk now independence. But I for one has had that talk ever since I was a teenager, and it's quite recorded in the United Nations of my position. I haven't changed from that. But right now, I says we're not unified enough to be ready to do that right now, and we shouldn't jump to conclusions when we have a crisis.
Right.
We should plan. We should not be reactive. We should be proactive,
right.
And this takes a lot of planning.
So we do have a caller joining us. Let's go to our phones and hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Peter Schmidt here.
Hey, good afternoon, Cap. How are you, sir?
I'm well, and I hope the same for you.
Amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You know, necessity is the mother of invention, right? And one of the problems this unity among the Cayman people exists because in the last, I've been here 51 years, but at least in the last 40 years, financially Cayman has done too well. It has covered other issues up. Everything, the local issues could be solved with throwing money at them or appear to be solved. So that's why you had the lack of activity on fundamental things which should have been addressed by each government taking a turn at addressing some of the important issues of state and the change accordingly. But everything, there was no critical needs arose that we could not pay for or somehow cover up with money for the time being. But in the meantime, the unity of the people or the need for unity among the people, because that requires compromise as well, did not arise. And here we find ourselves in the 21st century, and politicians are doing the same thing. They're prolonging useless discussions on relatively small matters, while the big issues of state and big issues of fundamental constitutional importance are left unaddressed because the time is taken up with a lot of words and very little action. So that's my comment today.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing that. So, a lot of words,
yes,
little action.
Yes, and that is because to be unified in the way that I speak about, to have all the organizations that support democracy, and especially that support democracy in an independent state, they have to be well thought out. The pros and cons of them have to be well thought out, and then you have to have educated people in which you have to put them in the hands of to be able to operate them.
Mm-hmm.
We have not had education as a priority in this country.
Are we at risk then, as we look at the changing demographic in our society, and perhaps given that people who are now making this their homes, whether they've been here for decades, they bring with them a different ethos, maybe a little bit more assertive, some would say perhaps more aggressive. Perhaps they don't relate to the Caymanian tradition of, yesteryear. That the society in 5 years or in 50 years could be wholly different, both in its appearance, but also in its sort of perspective.
Oh, definitely. For example, some societies, the only way that you will be able to eat, live comfortable, have a shelter, is because you got an education. That is quite clear in some societies. Now, where you have a society like we are, where it's free for all, It's the typical capitalist society where the fittest survive, and then you transplant those people from those societies where not only the fittest survive, but the most educated survive, and the person who has the better education, he will survive in this society better than he will in his own society. In fact, this is the society in which he will ferment and become middle class, and then become upper class, and then become ruling class. We didn't have to contend with that because we always had someone to look out for us, and we never tried to do that on our own. So the problem that we are going to have, if we continue what we're doing right now and do not make education a priority, so that we can move from one stage, from one socio-economic stage to the other, that will happen to us like what you just suggested. That is starting to happen to us now. I know people who came here with with no resources whatsoever, came here from the bottom. What you call it? Working in restaurants, slashing the floor, washing the floor, and today they have great homes in South Sound, Governor's Harbour. They own businesses and whatnot. It's because they came with some sort of education from some sort of system where they said, if you have education and if you apply that,
there's a reward.
There's a reward.
Okay. Respectfully, sir, let's go to our news break. But when you come back, let's talk about the education being a priority, the political will, and the people's involvement. For those, listen to our news and then rejoin us after the break.
Green Turtle, modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have here on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Officers responded to a report of an assault at an address near the junction of West Bay Road and Eastern Avenue in Georgetown shortly before 6 a.m. on Sunday. It was reported that a woman and a man were assaulted by another man known to them. The male victim was injured with a machete and was transported to the Cayman Islands Hospital by private vehicle, treated for non-life-threatening injuries and subsequently released. A man aged 24 of Georgetown was arrested and has been formally charged with wounding, common assault, and damage to property in relation to the incident. He appears in court today. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. Rescuers in California have been airlifting dozens of people trapped by huge fires as crews continue to battle blazes across the state. An initial attempt to rescue the group stranded in mountain refuge for 2 nights was abandoned on Monday night because of smoke from the creek fire, but helicopters were able to land early on Tuesday and have begun taking the hikers to safety. And 1 in every 8 deaths in Europe can be linked to pollution, and that's according to a new report by the EU's Environment Agency. It said factors such as air and noise pollution, as well as poor water quality and exposure to chemicals, contributed to 13% of all deaths. The report also noted that poorer communities and vulnerable people were the hardest hit by pollution. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Your voice, your choice, your radio.
Now with FedEx, the more you ship, the more you save. Get up to 50% discount when sending your packages to all destinations in the world with our international services. Visit FedEx.com, keyword Caribbean discounts for terms and conditions.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best and sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
The Fall 2020 Labor Force Survey, conducted by the Economics and Statistics Office, starts on Sunday, September 27th. The Labor Force Survey collects data on employed and unemployed persons. Trained interviewers with ESO ID cards will visit randomly selected households in all districts. The interviewers will exercise appropriate COVID-19 protocols using personal protective equipment. The interviews are confidential in accordance with the statistics law. No individual data will be published or disclosed. Survey data are exempt from freedom of information. For more details, please call the ESO hotline 516-3329.
Attention all government school students headed back to school. Demonstrate your school pride by following the National Dress Code Policy and your school's dress code. Under the National Dress Code Policy, all female students must have their hair worn in neatly groomed natural styles and color. Uniform shirts must be fully tucked in, skirts at knee length, and worn with black sneakers or shoes. The wearing of makeup, nail polish, and false nails are not permitted, and no jewelry except for a wristwatch. To learn more about the dress code policy, visit www.education.gov.ky. Take pride in your stride today. A message from the Ministry of Education.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks for joining us, and truly grateful to Mr. Steve McField for sharing. For those who want to join, it's 949-8037 or toll free at 1-800-534-8255. You can WhatsApp 925-3261 equally. Now, when we talk about politics, for some people, they get excited. Others, they become despondent. For some people, discussion of politics mean that you're looking at electioneering, and that happens. Mm-hmm. But can we have a discussion of politics, looking at the political history, the political economy, the political capital that some people may have, a government of the day, a political figure of the day, without it coming to a point where it's divisive and vitriolic? For people to say, okay, if the government is going to advance its society, politically, economically, socially, you share that education has to be a key. But can we educate without understanding our history?
Not really. History is the platform from which everything evolves. History will tell us what happened in the past. History will guide us to where we are. And history will give us a vision of where we are going to go and how to get there. Mm-hmm. That's what history is all about. That's why it's very important. Just let me give an example. Many years ago, when I first came back and I joined the civil service as a clerk of the courts, the judicial system, and there was a whole lot of us that had returned back to Cayman Islands back in the 70s. And there was a woman from the United Nations, was a training officer along with Mr. Gilbert McLean. And one day we were all up in the large common room in the glass house, and old Mr. Harry McCoy, we used to call him Black Phillip because he was so perfect and so loyal, like Prince Philip. We call him Black Phillip. And one weekend he said to maybe 15 or 16 of us, "I want you to go home," he says, "this weekend, and I want you to come back and tell us what's government." And so we all went home and I wrote this nice paper, you know, the Queen and the Parliament and the Governor and Council and so forth and so forth. And he turning over, you threw it in the garbage. And he says, no wonder. He says, if had you been at university, you would get an A or a B. And so we would say, like, what's this man talking about? And so he says, let me tell you, government is a set of records. He says civil servants are hired and they are retired, and politicians are elected and but he said the record remains. And I thought about that. When you go into a government system or any other system, like a bank or any other organization, the success of them is the records they keep. When you become minister, when Dwayne become minister, you go and you see what the other minister did is all recorded, and it's from that platform that you move on, you move forward. If you try to throw that away and put it on a shelf, and then try to create your own, you will always run into trouble because history will catch up with you.
So then, is that part of our challenge, right? Sorry.
Yes. So that explains what the question you just asked me.
Right. Given then our country's history, you reflect, as I do, December 10th, 1831, right? And we're seeing the independence of the people. We're seeing the political maneuverings to create a greater sense of autonomy within a society. Now, someone listening today say, well, that was 1831. This is 2021 almost. I mean, can't wait for this year to get over. But without appreciating that we had a handful of people back then, understanding the historical context with who can vote, who can't vote, and so on. But if we advance it to this day, we're no further ahead. Some would say politically and even economically, we're further behind. Socially, perhaps, so. But with that in mind, are we as a people, as political sort of animals, not looking sufficiently long enough down the road? 50 years, a plan. We had a vision 2008, a 10-year plan. Some said it was a great blueprint. Others said it was ignored to our peril. But if we're not looking at 50 years down the road, as opposed to one election cycle to the next, the roads, for instance, the physical infrastructure, but our educational endeavors and investment, if that is the issue, are we recognizing it? And if so, are we doing anything to address it?
No, we're not. We're not recognizing it. And part of it is because, like I said, it's not important, it's not significant enough to us. I have come to the conclusion that Cayman is a real physical society. Everything that happens most is from a physical nature. Men, if you build a nightclub, you can get it packed every night with fun. People kicking up their heels and drinking and stuff and things like that. If you build a racetrack, you can get all the people out there with their cars to race. If you have a new car and you sell it at a good price, people buy it. But if you have an educational program, you'll not see too many people turn up for an educational program. To advance the mind, the intellect. There's not much intellectual curiosity among our people. That's the problem that we have. And that is because we have not had to use that to be able to advance, to get ahead over the last 2 or 3 decades. Everything has been physically done. New buildings, new roads, cell phones. You don't have to think anymore. You don't have to do logarithms, and you don't have to do mathematics anymore. You can just go and plug in, and the device gives you the answer.
So we're confusing the glitter for the goal.
Exactly.
And then
exactly
the tangible thing, irrespective of how valuable it is, we like that because we can touch it, feel it, we can measure it. But as you mentioned, then the education, that investment, the trained physician or educator is going to take 10 years.
Yes.
Or we're not willing to invest in that as a people or as an individual because the return to us is
We don't see the return because the return. What we see, does he have a big car? What does his house look like? Where is his house situated? And that brings me to the other point. We have not even prepared ourselves professionally for all these things that we are going to need to be able to have a natural foundation. A gentleman was, one of the doctors, one of the famous prominent Cayman doctors was telling me last year, I think it was, or the year before. He says, Steve, do you realize that after Dr. Edelin died, there's no Caymanian dentist now? And there are some 50 dentists that's licensed in Cayman. You think about that.
Yeah.
You think about that. You think about that, Sterling.
Yeah.
And when you look, I don't see in the statistics or in the reports where so many people now abroad are studying for dentistry to come back to fill all of these 50 posts. Because some of them have permanent residence already and some of them are in work permits. And the problem, like the dentist said to me, if we don't do something about that particular thing, that's an example. Those people who will want to become a dentist later on will never be able to have a chance when they come back. And so that's just one thing. Those are the institutions that we also have to bring up as we go along this 21st century highway into where we want to get as an independent people. If we have to depend on people come from abroad to give us dentistry, to give us medicine, to give us technology, to do all these things, we will never survive.
Right. So, Mr. Steve, in part preparation for our discussion today, I reached out to a couple of individuals just to poll, for want of a better word, and they relate a few things. One, they say that the investment in education, as you rightly identified, is the one thing they're lacking. Not that we're not spending from the government's perspective or private sector and other personal expenditures a lot of money on education, but we haven't identified one reference thing that, if he doesn't mind me saying, Mr. Bill Adam, he said this publicly, where are the cathedral builders in our society? They may not be around to see the end product, but they're laying the foundation, what our ancestors did back then. One of the individuals quickly asked, if you were to think of different sectors, whether it's in the restaurant sector, and you were to say, okay, within the kitchen staff or within the wait staff, or whether it was in the judiciary or any sector, would you equate this sector with being of this particular influence by this group of people? And in that, she sort of said, one, maybe the physical lack of the number, the head count of Caymanians, and two, perhaps the deliberate, and unwilling attempt on our part to make sure that we invest the dentists, the lawyers, the doctors, the chef, all of these areas. We're not putting enough of our people in these areas for them to understand that there is, money to be made, but there's a greater, good to be had. And at the end of the day, she's of the view that perhaps, in less than 2 decades, we're not only going to see a marked shift in the face of Cayman, but the political landscape is going to be completely different. The person that you're electing isn't going to be Caymanian, as defined by, our point of reference. But so will the judges and the lawyers and the police officers, the prison staff, the judiciary, the head of the civil service. All of the things are going to be fundamentally different.
Whose fault is that?
Well,
it's the fault of you and I and all our people. Is our fault, because what we should be doing, since we know those things, and since they have manifested themselves now, that we can see them and we can you and I can discuss them on the radio publicly now. We can see those, because we couldn't do that before. We would not have this chance to do that. Sometimes before to discuss this publicly, we would be castigated. as troublemakers and want to mash up the country and so forth. We now, you and I are doing our best to start to educate the Caymanian people of why they should form organizations and form political unity to be able to provide those things, because that is how a conquest of a country is established. Simply by all those things you just said. You don't go in now with army and kill everybody and so forth, and then bring the priests afterwards to pacify those that you want to stay alive. Because what they would do before, they would kill all the adult men so they can indoctrinate the young people and the women and start a different society all over. They done that. It's all over. That's how the conquest has always been. We know that that's not how it's done anymore now. The thing now is to work for minds, the mind, and this is why when I read how the socialists and the communists and the difference between them and what the Cold War and all that kind of stuff was all about, it wasn't for them to invade America or America to invade Russia or so forth. It was fighting to get people to believe what you believe. Exactly. And so what we are doing now is sort of setting the pace, but we need the cooperation and unity for the people who have the resources and the economic and political power to be able to manifest that into tangible assets that we can say this is where we move into. For instance, we have the University College of the Cayman Islands now, and I see the president out begging money, asking people for donations to help and things like this and whatnot. Well, with a society that we say is one of the most wealthiest society in the Caribbean, we should have nearly every student who leaves the high school to be out there free. And we should determine from them the kind of people that we want to produce. We should be producing so many doctors a year, so many dentists per year, so many architects per year, so many technicians per year, so many medical technicians per year, so many policemen per year, so many magistrates per year, so many people in the legal department per year. That's what we should be doing, and we should have a surplus of them, even that we could send them all over the world. We should be the Japanese of the West Indies. And training and technology. That's what we should be doing, but we don't do that.
I want to maybe ask you that. I'm glad you mentioned that. But we do have a caller joining us, Mr. Steve. Let's go to our phones. Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for calling.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Pretty good.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you for taking my call. I'd like to ask Dr. McField to expand on an experience that I had on OC's show when the governor was on. My understanding is that Radio Cayman is an agency of government and or department, one of the two, but a government entity, put it that way. And as a result of that, the Bill of Rights, my protection from government infringing on my rights applies to Radio Cayman. And while I was on the show, two things occurred. One was that I wanted to make a statement, and the host wanted me to ask a question. And when I wouldn't give in to that, he cut me off. And so I take that to mean that he was limiting my speech, one, and secondly, he was trying to compel me to say something that I didn't want to say, or in a way that I didn't want to say it, because the method of asking a question was not appropriate for what was going through my mind. And my view is that OC and Radio Cayman breached my Section 11 freedom of expression right. And I'd like to hear what your guest has to say about that.
Well, I don't know. I think, Danny, I think you must understand that the radio station, as I have been told, belong to the government. Now, the government can dictate the programs on the radio. They can dictate how the program should come on and how they should continue and how they should end. And I guess you should realize that the show in which you called in, I think it was, the governor was there, and the governor probably, I don't know, but it seems to me that he's laid the parameters in which he wanted to come on the radio that morning and how he wanted the participation of the public to continue. And so therefore it seems to me that OC was only doing what he was told to do. Remember now, this radio station does not belong to OC. And OC is not an independent person. And so it seems to me that you have to really understand that it's the governor's radio station. And the governor didn't want OC to allow you to be able to go any further than asking some questions that the governor said that's how he wanted the consultation to begin and to continue. That's how he set the parameters of the consultation, by just asking him questions, and that he was not entertaining anything else. And I think OC was only reflecting what he had been told by the people who controls him.
Well, a couple of things in relation to that is that that may well be the case, that he was following orders. But what that would suggest to me is that he's willing to follow orders to the point of breaching my rights, just because he was told so. And that troubles me, because I think that's a level of immaturity that we need to get over if we are going to be a properly self-governing country.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he was right, and I'm not.
No, I understand.
Okay.
I understand. I'm clear. I just want to respond to what you're saying, because in saying that, some people may not understand what you're saying. I do. But what it means is that the purpose that the governor was there, as he claimed, was to consult with the public. And by limiting participation to asking questions, what it would mean, in essence, is that he wouldn't be consulting me. I would be consulting him, because he would be telling me what he thinks about why he's doing it, instead of allowing me to make a statement, which would be me telling him what I think about the bill, which is the true purpose of consultation in the context in which he was supposedly on the show. And so what I'm saying is that I believe that the governor was misusing this government resource in violation of my Section 11 freedom of expression to achieve the purpose of showing a facade of consultation, when that in fact wasn't what was really happening. And then he turns around, the host turns around and allows the caller just a few minutes later to make statements, and didn't require the caller to ask a question. But the difference between the content of that caller's message and mine was that I opposed what the governor was doing, and that caller supported what the governor was doing. And I think the governor was biased. I think the host was biased. And I think the radio station, the management of the radio station, need to think very carefully about what it's doing in relation to people's freedom of expression. Because, like, I'll go on other shows, and they're not government entities, and they actually have the right to curtail my speech, but yet they don't. They choose to allow me to express myself. If it's a statement or a question, however, they just allow me to ask it as long as I'm not saying anything that's prohibited from being said by law on the radio. But yet we have a government entity that is participating in breaching people's human rights, and I might say breaching it while they are on there talking about equality. And I just think that this is really, really bad. And I hope that not only the governor, but the government and the management of the radio station think very carefully about it, because that can't be allowed to just be the norm, because that's going to destroy all of the benefits of having a Section 11 right under the Constitution.
Well, maybe after our break, Mr. McPhee, we can pick up that discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Warren, is there anything else you want to leave with us, sir?
I enjoy listening to you guys, and thank you for the time.
Well, thank you for taking time to share. To our listeners, perhaps we could engage in that further. And the whole issue of political maturity, respectfully expressing our differences of opinion, and understanding, what rights and freedoms and obligations and duties and the like that we may have or may not have. All right, stay tuned for Talk Today.
At Cayman National, you can bank from wherever, whenever. Take advantage of 24/7 access to manage accounts, free electronic fund transfers, 20% discount on wire transfers and drafts, and free bill and credit card payments, all while keeping yourself, your loved ones, and the wider Cayman community safe. Sign up for online banking today by submitting your application to cnb@caymannational.com and take advantage of our online banking benefits today. Remember, though socially distant, we are here for you and we are in this together.
Green Turtle, modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Hey, hun, what you doing?
Putting things away in the shed since it's hurricane season. Preparing for the better.
Don't you mean preparing for the worst?
No, for the better. Since we have Brit-K Insurance, we're fully covered against hurricanes. Plus, they have response teams ready to help us file a claim faster. If I were preparing for the worst, I'd watch football all day.
Still don't get it.
Isn't there a match on?
Oh, really?
Let Brit-K prepare you for the better this hurricane season. Call 949-8699 or visit britk.ky.
Teachers, sports, homework, friends, and unfortunately, a familiar bully, peer pressure. How will you respond to negative influences? Know the facts, make positive choices. For more information, visit ndc.ky. This is a public service message from the National Drug Council and Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks for joining. And certainly very, very grateful for not only the education but the excellent company of Mr. Steve Murphy. I really appreciate, value, and respect your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
I learned so much, man.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, going back to what Mr. Warren was saying just now, I asked you the question, is the radio station being run by a board? And you said, no, is it run from the cabinet office? But I mean from the Secretary of the Cabinet.
Yeah, we fall under that portfolio, so we have a director.
Portfolio.
Yeah.
So that answers his question. I mean, we're not autonomous here. Yeah. The radio station doesn't have autonomy. It's run by that and that's the executive arm of the government, isn't it? Mm-hmm. The cabinet office is the executive arm of the government, so it's not autonomous. It doesn't have its own board like other government entities. They have the board of the road authority board. The
it's not a statutory authority.
It's a statutory authority, so it's not, and that's the problem. And so Mr. Warren has to understand that. And so what do? You work towards taking it away from that sort of thing and putting it into a board that has editorial power and all that sort of stuff over what is done and what is said and over programming. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. It might not be Mr. Orrit one time. It might be some other commentator, and then he has to. That's what they tell him, and then he has to follow what they say.
All right. Let's get this caller, but I'll come back to this idea of statutory authorities and the like. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Hello.
How are you today?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you?
Oh, blessed. Wow. Another incredible lady. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your time.
Well, I like to identify myself. This is Mary Lauren. Sometimes I forget to do because everybody recognizes me. But very interesting conversation. And I'm not going to be very long, but I want to draw something to everybody's attention. Mm-hmm. We're talking about advancing this country and how it can be done. Mr. Maxfield is right, education, and I don't mean just as what people talk about book learning. I mean education of who we are, where we come from, the people on whose shoulders we stand. We need to know all of that. To have an education that drives us to do more than acquire a degree and come back and sit behind the desk. But we have another problem here. This is the first time since maybe the late 50s, early 60s, that this country has not had a daily newspaper. Little by little, I've watched the freedom of the press being whittled away in one form or the other. Now, you can tell me this is not what's happening, but that is one of the first areas you move on when you want to exert a level of control that the people are not even aware is happening in their country. Okay? We don't have a daily newspaper. We have a newspaper that was carried, our name was supposed to be the Kimanian Weekly, and then the Kimanian, and then it was changed to the Kiman, and then it was back to Kimanian, I believe. But it's now operating online. It's only published one time a week, and I guess they weren't selling the copies that were coming out one time a week, so now they're going to charge for their online publication. Mm-hmm. If you read it, you'll have to subscribe to it. We have another newspaper that comes out 3 times a week, supposed to be free, and it's hard to find a copy because it goes off the newsstand as soon as it hits there. We have a radio station owned by the government. The government is supposed to be the people, but the government here is a little group of people who sit in that big building in front of where you all are sitting now. We have a television station owned by the government. Both of these entities could be used on a daily basis to educate the people of this country. Not just the child in the classroom. We should have an education plan for that child, which we don't have. But everybody, the community, we should be using these tools to educate the community. It's being paid for by the country's purse. We had another little television station, and that was wiped out because government said it hadn't paid their bill. Well, if government went out and collected all the bills that have not been paid by all the big corporations and organizations in this country, we wouldn't have to have people standing in bread lines to get a little bit of food to feed their children, or depend on the charitable organizations to give them a food bag to go to school. Our problem is that we are not consistent in what we do. We will come out now and we will talk, and after a couple of days, the governor said it, that when he was bringing this law into effect, he would just, disappear. All the talk would disappear, because we don't use building blocks in our community. We don't take this block and this happens to be, so we need to build and build and build. We don't do that. I have been here a very long time, and I've watched this country go from one point to the next. It never seems to have a plan. We never seem to be organized. Mr. Dr. Matfield said a while ago that we should have a united legislature in dealing with these problems. That is true. That is true. But who is going to do the uniting? When this, and I'm using the bill not because of what the bill said, but I'm using the bill as an instrument of what happened. When that bill was put out with great haste to be brought to the Legislative Assembly, there was no assembly. This is a controversial piece of legislation. As far as I have been able to determine, there was no request on the part of government to meet with what we call the opposition members, not the opposition because that's only two people, but to meet with the other side of the House and sit down and get their feedback on this. There was no attempt to do that. There was no attempt to come to the people, which is what they all should have done, all 19 of them, come to the people and tell the people, this is what's coming up. Do you have any views on it? We're doing these things in isolation. Then we come to the House. When you come to the House, the Premier gave his people the opportunity to vote their conscience. Immediately he could do a count and know that bill wasn't going to go anywhere. Immediately he could have done that. But they went ahead and they brought it to the House. It gets to the House and it fails by one vote. One vote. This was not a unanimous decision of the House. The bill failed by one vote. Now you have a few options. When you find out your bill is not going to go the route, you can withdraw it and bring it back another day. You can have meetings and discuss it. I don't know what the haste was to get this done in 24 hours, like everybody seemed to have been so anxious to get it done. But it's a far-reaching piece of legislation. It is a piece of legislation. It affects the entire social fabric of this country. And it deserves to have been handled properly so that the people could understand what was going on and the people could be participatory participants, either through their legislators or vocally through the community. But that wasn't done. Immediately that the bill failed in the House by one vote, the governor made a speech. Democracy was, oh my, this was so terrible what had happened. But some time ago, and I can't remember the particular piece of legislation, I got to look it up. The bill came to the House. The government has the power at all times to pass anything, except when, like the Premier just did, let his people make their own minds up. Came to the House and it was passed because they had the power to do it. The opposition objected, but they passed it anyway. And the governor sent it back. He didn't sign it. They sent it back to the House. There are procedures to be followed. You don't go from walking up the hills to jumping off the mountaintop. There is a procedure in that Parliament is built on procedures and precedents. That's what the British Constitution is built on. They don't even have that written down. They just remembers what this one did 200 years ago and what they can do today. We don't understand. We're talking about, well, we don't understand how our government works. We don't understand that the government of this country is the governor and the cabinet. We still talk about the governor in council. There is no governor in council. 10 years ago, that was written out of the Constitution. The governor and the cabinet. And when you are going to exercise power, I don't care if it's the governor, the premier, or the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. There are certain steps you take before you arrive at that point, where you're going to use your ultimate card. Even when you were growing up, your mama would threaten you. She would tell you this, you couldn't do this. She'd put you in the corner, whatever. And then one day she got the switch. That led up to that. We don't understand. The general public doesn't understand, and we haven't been taught to care. We had a caller some time ago to talk about how we've managed to pay for all of these things along the way. Well, we're going to do more than pay. We're going to do more than pay. We are going to pay with the Caymanian history and the Caymanian people if we don't get our act together to build this country into a Caymanian country. We had a good start. We had people who pushed us, who pushed to get the things done here, who they hadn't gone to college, but they had good common sense. And they brought in the financial industry, they brought in the tourism industry, they took control of the mosquitoes. We went and imported them from England and brought them in here. We don't have any plan for where this country is going. And if you don't have a plan, there's always going to be someone to push you off the cliff. There's always going to be someone behind you to push you off the cliff. You have to have a plan. Right now, we need a plan for survival. In the Cayman Islands, the Caymanians need a plan for survival. Survival of its people, a survival of its children, a survival of its future as a country called the Cayman Islands. Yes, we welcome everybody here, and sometimes that's mistaken as being soft. Yes, we do that. Yes, there is no dissent. Even if somebody says something once in a while, there is no dissent among the many nationalities living here. But every day, I see those people walking into positions that we're talking about Caymanians. We have Caymanians sitting in this island now with a degree in their hands and can't even get someone to answer their telephone or to answer their email or to answer their application for a position, a beginner's position in their company. It's in Cayman now, and we have not done anything about it. Years ago when you went away, you came back, you knew there was a position here for you. There was a place here. You could maybe start at the bottom, but there was something here that you could begin with and work your way up. We're not giving that anymore to our children. We started a law school to prepare lawyers, and we didn't start anything to prepare teachers. We have how many Caymanian teachers? I bet you could count them on two hands. How many fingers? How many Caymanian teachers we have in the classroom today? Why? Because back years ago, when they made the teaching profession the most important area of the scholarship giving, if you wanted to be a teacher, they gave you a full scholarship covering all your expenses because they were encouraging young people to go to be teachers, to train as teachers and come back. Those days are gone. Those days are gone. It is education, as Matthias said it, education is not the most important thing on the burner for Caymanians in this country. And until we put it there, until we make that a priority, we don't have too much time left, you know. We have so many people coming here now and gaining, because we got to protect their rights. They're here, so we got to give them residence. Then you got to give them status. Then you got to educate their children. Then you got to do, then you got to do, then you got to do. And pretty soon, we are going to be in the position where we're going to be obsolete. We are going to be obsolete. I cry for my country every day now. I cry for my country because I look and I don't see the political will. I don't see the community will. I don't see the education will. I don't see what it takes to pull us out and preserve the fact that we, the Caymanians, are part of the Cayman Islands. And I'm not going to say much more today. That's enough for now, right?
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I know, Mr. Steve, we have some other callers. Let's welcome those.
Yes.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for calling. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello?
Hi, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, you got a pretty good conversation going here today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I had to think that Steve was sailing against the wind. He got them all pulled down, and I think what the last caller there, her dissertation on what the situation is, you know, it's right between the lines. And if you go back to the first caller, I think he had some very succinct things that his observation was about what has happened to us, and but it all comes back around to, and this has been muted there on the program today. Education. We have not been educating our people about the things that really matter if we're going to be moving forward. And you know, programs like this, it does help, but you know, you think we got, I'm not sure how many radio stations in the country now, probably 19. Last count I had was something like 19, 20, 22. Does any of these other stations do anything like this? I really and truly, I'm not sure. Well, I guess Rooster does have a call-in program, which is a good you know, a good presentation. But and I think somewhere along the line I heard was mentioned about the radio station being under a board or a public authority. You know, an attempt was made for that. An attempt was made at that when Mr. Gilbert was in the cabinet. I guess it was 2000 and I guess it was 2002, 2003, somewhere in there. 4 my young days. I mean, we set up a committee and we took it right through to as far as we could take it in the building there, and well, it got lost in transition because there just wasn't the support, and we come back to the political support. I would say there was not the political support, and you come right back to what Steve or Dr. Steve has mentioned. You know, somewhere along the line, we don't seem to think that we can climb the hill, or we can bring the hill down to our side, or however you want to approach it, but don't think that we can accomplish what we need to accomplish. But it will have to go. It will have to be done through proper educational process, educating our people as to what, and really finding out from them where do we want to go, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, contrast that against the education, and you know, just pull them down and head into the wind and do whatever you got to do to make port.
Well, Mr. Loxley, it seems to me that our forefathers had that problem when they were emerging and evolving. There were no schools here, public schools. There were no churches, and there was no education. And they went out and did it themselves.
Right.
They went out and started their own schools and educated themselves, and teach people how to build their ships and how to navigate and how to become merchants and the story of those men all that went all around the world today is remarkable. Without a university education, without going to Harvard or Yale or Georgetown University or Toronto or University of Toronto or Cambridge or Oxford. And it seems like we are going to have to do that again with ourselves. We're going to have to set up our own organization and institutions and tutor our own children, and like our forefathers did to us when and they did among themselves.
Yeah, I think you're quite right about that. And I think what one of the previous callers mentioned that maybe there's the whole society has got too comfortable, and our forefathers didn't have that kind of comfortability. They, like you just mentioned, they had to make their way, and maybe we don't have the what the old folks used to refer to it. We don't have enough gumption.
Yes.
To come up to that level.
It's like this old lady from Warhol told me one time, they don't have no ability.
Yeah.
No ability. She mean they don't have any ability. She said you don't have no ability. That's probably what's happening today.
Yeah, the old gumption is it got swallowed up with whatever. But good conversation going, and I think these kind of programs, these kind of discussions, can only it can be beneficial.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
And I think what Miss Mary had to say there, that should be excerpted for the whole program.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So, anyway,
thank you very much, sir. And Mr. Steve, let's join another caller.
Yes.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Hey, good afternoon.
How are you today, man?
Okay, and good afternoon, Dr. Steve.
Oh, good afternoon, sir.
Okay. So right now in the Cayman Islands, it's legal for homosexuality acts to be done in private. And if a police officer goes into a home and there are homosexuality acts going on, not able to arrest them or do them anything. But if a police officer goes into someone's home and they're sitting down in the living room, smoking a spliff, watching the news, police can grab them, take them, put them in handcuffs, and throw them in the back of a car and carry them and lock them up. Okay? And we did not pass a law for legalizing the smoking of marijuana because we felt as though it was not right and it could cause future problems. Okay? Now, England is forcing us and has forced us to pass a law that is worse, especially in the eyes of God. And our relationship with England is only going to get worse, It's only going to get worse. It's not going to get any better, okay? And going independent is the best thing that we can do. All we need to do is make sure we obey the laws of the land and continue doing things that will continue to make our islands prosperous and stable. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
And to you. Thank you. One more caller, Mr. Steve.
Yes.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Banks and Mr. Maxfield.
Yes, ma'am.
How are you?
Not too bad. And thanks so much for the education that you provided in these programs. I hope that we'll have more of these. because young, old, and in between need to hear the message that you gave today, where we were, where we are going, where we came from, and so on. And thanks to Miss Mary, her comments are always wise message to Cayman. I just wanted to say that I believe I speak for the majority of Caymanians, many Caymanians. It's not so much about opposing the local Caymanian LGBT group of people. I think it's really what we do oppose and reject is the repercussions that this civil union bill will bring to our beloved islands, such as changes in our education program. We hear about it happening in UK, where young children, not even high school children, young children are being taught that they don't have to be what God created them to be, all the gender changes, and the gay pride celebrations that we read about and hear about, the discrimination and all these issues that we feel is going to change the face of Cayman and make living here not what we want it to be. So we apparently will have to say no, and we have to and stopping these horrible things from happening to us. But I believe that hopefully, and I hope that it don't happen, I think we're going to have some real criminal activities going on, and we have to pray against that. But I believe that the CPB did not have to be equivalent to marriage law. The governor failed to consult with the people. He just made up his mind to do what he did say that he would do, impose the CPB bill on us. And I believe that without getting the majority of Caymanian views on it, and I feel that we are going to be the worst off as an island, as islands, as a result of this. And we have to pray for God's mercy and grace.
Amen. Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, you know, ma'am, the problem that we have with this bill is that a law that would change the whole face of the Caymanian society, the whole everything, change the belief in their church, the belief in their family, the belief in their work habits, the belief in everything it's so significant that to say that you are going to consult people, give them 21 days as a consultation period, and then limit the consultation for them to ask questions of you. It's not right. It's not right.
It's ridiculous.
And what should have happened to this bill should have been similar to what happened when they were doing the new constitution in 2009.
Exactly.
They went around the country and they had booklets and they had meetings and they had meetings with people, and they had people to give their views, and people could pick up the mic and they could say what they wanted. All of those things were recorded. But to change it to do an act that would change a whole people's a whole nation's
viewpoint,
way of life, it's not going to go down really good. It's not going to go down really good. But then when you read the document, the highest that imposes the highest law on the land, the Constitution, it clearly says that the priority is what the United Kingdom wants. Now, this is a priority in the United Kingdom. Yeah. It has been for many years now. They have a priority that they want to have this lifestyle. Legalize in England, the right to legalize this. And since we are their colony, and since they have the laws imposed, that is what happened to us. So, ma'am, my position is this. I have asked the Caymanian people a question. I have asked this question to legislators. They knew that Section 81 was in the Constitution. They knew it has been used before, because in 2004, when Hurricane Ivan came, the governor then used his reserve powers and took the powers away from the cabinet, and took the civil rights away from every Caymanian by imposing a state of emergency, and ran the country through the offices of one lawyer in downtown. Okay. And there's nothing that my legislator could do. I had two ministers in Bodden Town at the time. The Honorable Roy Bodden and the Honorable Gilbert McLean were ministers. They could not do a thing to help me. They could not do a thing to help the Bodden Town people. They could not do a thing to help the Caymanian people. They knew that this provision was there. And so the problem that I ask you, and I ask your friends and everybody in your neighborhood and your household, what are we going to do now with Section 81? Do we still want that to continue in 2020? Because they said, oh, well, some politicians say he should not have used it and so forth. It's there. It's there. He has used it.
It can be used.
And it can use it again tomorrow. And the question is now, what are we going to do about it? That's the debate I want to hear now up and down the country.
I agree with you, Mr. Maxfield. I agree with you. And please lead us on how we do this, because we need people to stand up for the majority of Caymanians here and our young people, our young children, and the way forward.
And those are the people.
Lead us on how we do this, because it needs to happen.
And those are the people that I care about, because, ma'am, I do not have a future. 40 years ago, I had a future. I'm living in my future now. Mm-hmm. I'm living in my future days. It is it is the people that come in before me, after me now, that I'm worried about. And the problem that I face, that I worry about day and night, is here I am in the country. I'm an educated person. I have a lot of experience, articulate, and I can't do anything to help them. I don't have any way but just getting on the radio and talking. I don't know.
We need you to run.
You see, I don't know.
We need you to run and elect you.
Well, ma'am, the last time I ran, one of my platforms is I am not giving any handouts. I am not allowing people to have a crutch. That is supported by the government. What I'm going to do, I'm going to educate people and give them a hand up, and so forth. And people didn't like that at all, because I said I'm not giving in the stove or in the fridge or any things like that. And if you want me to run for you raise funds for me, like how they do in other countries, so that I can be able to represent you. And I was willing at that time to give up my law practice to help sort out the country for my children, my grandchildren, your grandchildren, but it didn't happen. Right. And so I don't know if I can trust to put myself in the arena again this time, because the same thing might happen to me again.
Mr. Steve and Mom, thank you very much for that, respectfully.
Thank you.
Let's take our news break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. Thank you, Mom. God bless.
Thank you, ma'am.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Your 2 p.m. headlines brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have here on Northern Island.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
The Ministry of Tourism is hosting an open house today, tomorrow, and part of Thursday at the Marriott Ballroom. The event is designed to assist displaced tourism employees and provide an opportunity to register with Jobs Cayman Network with industry professionals and finding out about training opportunities. Today, people with last names I through P can attend up until 3:30 p.m. Tomorrow, last names Q through Z can attend between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. And there is also a session between 12:30 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. for those who weren't able to attend on the assigned alphabet day. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. Rescuers in California have been airlifting dozens of people trapped by huge fires as crews continue to battle blazes across the state. An initial attempt to rescue the group stranded in mountain refuge for 2 nights was abandoned on Monday night because of smoke from the creek fire, but helicopters were able to land early on Tuesday and have begun taking the hikers to safety. And 1 in every 8 deaths in Europe can be linked to pollution, and that's according to a new report by the EU's Environment Agency. It said factors such as air and noise pollution, as well as poor water quality and exposure to chemicals, contributed to 13% of all deaths. The report also noted that poorer communities and vulnerable people were the hardest hit by pollution. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Your 2 p.m. headlines brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Green Turtle, modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
For the latest in news and information,
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
your voice, your choice, your radio.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best and sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Maintaining a strong mind and body through sports and general healthy living is a good course of action. But what about your spiritual man, your inner man? He has to be awakened, fed, exercised, strengthened, and led according to the will of God. So, have you heard the call? I'm Evangelist Brother Joseph Joey Ebanks, and I'm inviting you to worship Wednesday and Thursday nights at 7:30. We are bringing the Word of God to our communities as Jesus commanded. Faith comes by hearing, so come and hear. Bring your own chair or simply park and listen to the Word of God from your vehicle, covering the Cayman Islands with the Word of God, one community at a time. This is Evangelist Brother Joseph Joey Ebanks, and I will be in East End, Little Hurley site, September the 9th and 10th, and at Ernest Powell House in Breakers on the 16th and 17th of September, 7:30 p.m.
You purchase the technology, you have the right to monitor and ask questions about what your child is doing. Visit ndc.ky for tips on how to have difficult conversations. This is a public service message
Green
from the
Turtle,
National Drug Council
modern
and Radio
solutions
Cayman.
to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan.
We're here for you. Did you know that since May, in support of the COVID-19 Emergency Withdrawal Program, the Chamber Pension Plan leveraged IT and human resources to successfully review over 15,000 member applications, approve over 11,000 applications, and will pay over CI $126 million to our plan members. We are the Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan, and we're here for you. For further information regarding the Emergency Withdrawal Program, visit chamberpension.ky. And for information as it happens, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Email admin@pensions.ky or call 745-7630.
Renew your vehicle and driver's license online at dvdl.gov.ky with the new normal in effect. Now you can avoid the lines and simply apply online. As part of the upgraded processes, the DVDL will also email your motor renewal vehicle documents. Skip the line and apply online at dvdl.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you very much for joining us, and thanks again to Mr. Steve McPhee, sir, for your company, for your insight. And we do have a number of other callers, so let's continue with our phones. Good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Hello, good afternoon, Sterling.
Hey, Rambo. Good afternoon to you, man.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Dr. Mark.
Good afternoon, Mr. Rambo.
Yes, how are you? Good. Very enticing. I'm sure today, very enticing. Fortunately, today I have a day off today, so, I can conduct some business. The whole Sept in the Parliament, right? You see the Union Jack in the red coat now, right? Their agenda is to conquer and prevail, and the Constitution, in every part of the world, right? To me, it's like a manifesto, not a comparison of it. That's a period, right? Unless you want to do a reconstitution of it, how it go.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what point I just say today now, the president, I just say now, right? When a couple months ago, over a year and a half ago, when you heard that the UK citizens, one was started here, and vote here, and run in the Legislative Assembly. That was a point now by a paranoid reintroducer. You understand? Because first of all, the Caymanians, the Caymanian people, we're very limited. The ratio, you look at that, like 4-1. That's where I'm from. And the UK now, like my opinion, starting Mr. Markfield, my opinion now, the last election, UK analysed that carefully and observed that carefully, that the horse trade, they were moving reluctant and hesitant, right? And into government form, right? And they did 80% of it. Besides one councillor, he left, drop off that. See? So like I said again, it came on now. Like Ms. Mark, we say all the time, there's a unity. That's the downfall of it. Right? And the independence topic, you need discussion of it. Discussion. Courage, brave heart of it. You understand? Because everybody want it, especially UK, like places like them, although we are dependent of them, places like them, they want it long term now. They want it long term too. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
The queen now, she's going to drop out now. Her son going to take it. He can be a king, They go down the generation gap, down the line. So, okay, now we got to set a trend. The governor passes law with this thing, and I had a sexual agree. They know we bring it, they don't talk to them, but all the parts around the region are like homophobic, and they rebel against the things. You understand? But I doubt that happened, I don't know. But, like I said again, came out now, like I say, my uncle ever said Brad calls in, and I call sometimes, the herb thing, you need to legalize for yesterday, or at least decriminalize for revenue and in society at least. Everybody be nice and calm, collect, because came out now, I know came out coming to. I know it coming to. But we're fortunate now, so far. No hurricane on the way. They got 4 on the horizon now. So we got that trend and move on. But like I said again, Mr. Smartfield, Mr. Smartfield,
Yes, sir.
2021 next run, and I see the border guy entice me in fast, you know. It ain't no change now. In the UK, weather now. They weather. The signing, dread ink, you know. Another thing now. So just be prepared and take heat, sir. Gentlemen, have a good day. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank
very
you too,
much,
sir.
Matt.
And we take one more call, Mr.
Yes,
Macfield.
yes.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for calling.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Mr. Macfield, I humbly call on you because I just heard you tell that lady, right, that in order for you to be able to go and run, you need us to collect some funds. Well, I can make about my part. I'm going out to look funds because you need to get up and run. Because if the people had elected you when most of us said that you was who was supposed to get there, we wouldn't be where we is today. I applaud you because I can hear it. You stand as strong you stand today. I hope not, I know you would have stood strong and we wouldn't have been here. And so I am going to humbly beg for you to consider running for the next election. Because I said I was not going to vote nobody under the age, about the older age of 30, but I changed my mind. I am going to elect a couple of young ones. But I need you to be the helmet of the ship because the captain we got on the ship now is going down. The ship is about to sink, and I can remember in 2003 when the command status was given away, they beat that bandwagon that the premier at that time, or whatever post he was holding, was McKeever Bush, and he was responsible for whatever happened. The status gave away. They were all into it, but McKee was the captain. My grandfather always thought he was a seaman, Captain Osborne Banks. He was a seaman, and he said, whenever you go as a captain, you are responsible for every soul and everything on that boat. You are the last person to get off of that boat.
That's right, ma'am.
So,
That's right.
Bush was the last then, and he was supposed. He whatever they did with him, he got off the ship, and the ship collapsed. Well, Mr. Alden McLaughlin, who had died to get the possession of the premier, has put a hole in our ship, and she's going down. But he needs to stay up till the ship goes down. He needs to stay up till the ship goes down because he needs to go down with it. He's not supposed to jump off the boat. And I want to thank Miss Mary Lawrence for all that information she gave us a while ago, because it was very educational. As I'm not a middle-aged Caymanian and a proud Caymanian. I adore everything that you said and everything she said and the people that called in for it, because this is our problem. This is our problem. We have allowed money to destroy us. That's what destroyed us, you know. The love of that money, not the money, the love of that money, what we could get in our back pocket. Not what the country can get in their back pocket. When the country get in their back pocket, I can get it too. No, it's what I can push in my back pocket to benefit my elite crew. So we're calling on you. I humbly beg you to please consider running for the next election. As I said, I'm from West Bay, and I will go around from starting this afternoon to see if I can collect some funds. You tell me how much you need, and I will see what I can do.
Well, it's not so much the funds. What I meant is that instead of me giving people money to vote for me, people should be collecting money to get me elected so that they can have good representation.
Well, I don't mean as in giving to or giving handouts. We don't giving no handouts.
Yeah. So.
I don't mean as literally giving that. I'm talking about what we need to do to get, because we need to educate our people.
Yes.
That these are the kind of people that we need.
Yes.
I'm talking about on the education level. We need to educate our people, because if they had did this 10 years ago, if they had elected all like you, Mr. Junior Kid, and Ebanks, respect, you didn't have no more stronger mind than what he did. He said clean and straight. And one thing about Mr. Katie and Ebanks, he said clean and straight that he was going to keep the government coffers straight. If it was going for candy, you couldn't take it for candy and go buy a popsicle. Accountability. So we have no accountability nowhere. No, all they're doing is slapping us in the face with whatever they want to slap us with. One of the young Caymanians made a joke, and it was a joke how he said it, but it's the reality. He said Caymanians just got enough education to be a educated fool. Yes. He said just enough education to be an educated fool, because if Dwayne remember, I know it can't be no more than, I don't know when Mr. Elio was running the radio show before he got elected. Elio said there was only 10 people that called in on the talk show on a daily basis complaining about where we were going. He said there were only 10 people, and I told Dwayne, I said, I think that the people, Caymanians, have fallen asleep. And when they wake up in that nightmare, it can be too late. And I believe the nightmare has come home to everybody. Now we can see it. No, Caymanians are waking up. They allowed the governor to exercise his 801 on us. Now they're going to wake up. If we were supposed to wake up a long time ago. We are so upset because I don't know what we're going to do. I do not know. Anyhow, you consider running for the next election. If you need to come to West Bay to run, you come.
That would be something. Ma'am, I used to come to West Bay to play cricket. I could never win a game in West Bay against the West Bay people.
Well, listen here to me. They had this thing said, if West Bayers liked you, they liked you. If they didn't like you, they didn't like you.
Yes.
And I'm sure it's like what? Like my mother used to say, she said, there were some people that could come to West Bay, didn't have no problem, and there were some that all had problems. Don't care who they was. So you come to West Bay. As I said, you want to run to West Bay, I will be the championship behind you. I'll make sure that I lobby for you, because we need Caymanians, and we need Christian people that have values. These people have lost their values. If you don't have no value, what are you standing for? What are we standing for? You can make all these expats come in here and domineer. When the premier and his cabinet, but as I say, he's the captain of the ship, so I don't want to hear him say it wasn't him by himself. He was the captain of the ship. When they allowed that Mr. Radovich or Bobovich, as Charlene calls him, to change our Cayman status law that it said marriage had to be of the opposite sex, that was our ruination. But you know why? Caymanians kept their mouth shut. They should have opened their mouth then. We should have been marching from then. We got a lot of sin in the spirit, and I'm not going to take one sin to corrupt the next. But the Bible does tell you that there are some sins that are not forgiven at all. There are some sins that if you brought up the Bible, you don't get no forgiveness for that, because that's the word of God. So some sins can be worse than others. And the slap they gave us in our face, that was the biggest insult. Like I told the governor, he said he was a West Bay, but he not a West Bay. Definitely he don't need to own West Bay, because he's not part of that. He's not part of West Bay. He can say he belongs to my beach, but he's not on West Bay. Okay.
All right.
Go.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I think, when we listen to the sentiments of, if you just look at the two later callers alone, the process, her colloquialism, the slap in the face.
Yes. Well, that brings me to a point I would like to make before I go, and that is something that happened. I think it was a month ago in the Park Committee. You know that the Park Committee was, for instance, let me tell you first. The Legislative Assembly has three major functions: representative, legislative, and oversight. Now, they have the oversight over different committees, like the Park Committee is one of the main committees which the Legislative Assembly has oversight. They call witnesses before the committee. And I just want to let you know, to tell you that witnesses have the same privilege as someone who's speaking in the Legislative Assembly. They have privilege in what they say in the Legislative Assembly. And what they say is their witness statements. Their witness testimony is part of the Hansard. Now, they didn't agree with what Dr. Pearson said in part of his testimony, and then they asked the Auditor General for her statement as to whether or not she agreed, and she disagreed with Dr. Pearson. At that point, what should have happened was that the PAC committee should have allowed Dr. Pearson to see what the Auditor General said that conflicted, because there were two different sets of facts before the committee that were conflicting with each other, so that he could comment on it, so that could be in the record. But what they did, and what they should not have done, was to allow the Auditor General's statement to stay and to purge the record of Dr. Linford Pearson's statement. That is completely wrong. I have done research in Australia, in Canada, in the United Kingdom, and I have not found any precedent for that at all in the parliamentary systems of those countries. Now, Erskine Mays says that in those circumstances, you should let the two sets of facts go in your report to the legislature, because that's what the PAC is. The Public Accounts Committee reports to the legislature, the Auditor General reports to the PAC committee, and the PAC committee then send their reports to the legislature. When there are two competing sets of facts that differ with each other and contradict each other, you don't strike out one and leave the other. And so the problem we have now is that the record is not complete. The record is not complete. And whoever did that, whoever took the decision to do that, is completely wrong. The record is incomplete. So when they send their records up now to the Legislative Assembly to say this is what went on in the PAC committee, the record is not complete. The Hansard is not complete. The Hansard has been purged. And that ought to be rectified. We cannot allow that to go. But that is what happens when people, the average person, does not understand the role that people play in public service when they have public duties, and they get away with it. It's completely wrong. I have never seen any precedents for it, either in Erskine Mays, or either in the Parliament in Canada, or either in the Parliament in New Zealand, or either in the House of Commons in United Kingdom. It is something that really bothers me, and that's the reason why I brought it up today, because that should never happen. And so it's not only the governor that we should be discussing. It should be our own people also, who has this tendency to do what they want to do without repercussions. There are repercussions for that, and whoever did it, the chairman or the members of the PAC committee, need to reinstate the records of the meetings and the evidence that they heard before it, because what they've done now, they have left a whole void in Hansard. The Hansard is not right. The Hansard has left out things, and it is for them. If they believe that Dr. Pearson was in contempt or something, then they should deal with that. But they should not strike out his testimony and purge the records of what he said. I take great objection to that, and say that was wrong, and that is something that we should be discussing too.
Okay. Well, this is where an understanding, as you've allowed us to look at our history, but also our constitution, our parliamentary sort of, not just a procedure but our process. As your schedule allows, sir, maybe one day we can have another join us as well and continue this educational endeavor. Very, very grateful.
Thank you
for
very
you
much
allowing
for
us the
asking
time.
me.
And thank you for being always so amenable and gracious and accepting the invitation. So very, very soon again, God's willing.
Thank you.
We'll have another education exercise.
Thank you, Mr. Sterling Dwayne.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
All right. To listeners, please, I looked at the calendar. I think tomorrow is Wednesday. I'm not even sure. I think it's September, the month of September. Okay, so we're in September. And if it's Wednesday, it starts. For the Record is on tomorrow. Please join him. Come back for talk today, right after the midday news and midday meditation. We're going to start off with the excellent company of Miss Mona Lisa. She does a fantastic job at the Tourism Attractions Board. Get a chance to chat with them. if you haven't been over to Pedro or to the Botanic Park or any of our attractions, good time to go, man. Good time to see the beautiful what's in the land. We get a chance to chat with her. And then we'll have a discussion with our friends at the museum, I think. And then we'll wrap it up with April Lee Banks, an educator, a phenomenal basketball player and coach. And she has a thing coming up, so we're going to talk to her about that as well. That's tomorrow. Until then, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Also brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download